This is my first time doing this, well, at least in a while. Usually I do it through Proco. Maybe you guys can see the background here is a little crazy. I just moved over the holidays, but I just want to get online. And how's the audio now, guys? Hey, what's up, Vicky? I'm going to do like a pterodactyl person this morning. This right now, do a block, and I got a really loose sketch. I'm just doing a fill behind the line work, and then I'm going to start photobashing over the top of it. But this gives me enough to work with. I like to start with either a human skull or just getting some like noise on the screen, you know? And this skull is pretty cool right here. You know, it'd be really good as, man, it'd be cool if you guys could drop photos in here, because that could like help me, like people putting in photos for me to use. That's a good idea. Cool, that gives me some interesting stuff right here. Yeah. Ooh, that's kind of cool right there. Oh man, this is the best. Just the crazy happy accidents. Just that right there is already kind of interesting. You know, I've got this earlier shape I had planned of my own. What I'm going to do is basically create a duplicate. Now I've got this version. I've got this version right here that kind of projects off. It's kind of weird and a little more abstract. And then I've got this one that's more like bound to my original choices or constrained to my original marks and drawing. That's cool. Then we need human skull in a profile view. That one's not bad. It's not quite profile, but we could kind of make it work, fake it. Dang, that's a good idea, dude. Unifying all my values here, how they match up like a little more perfectly. Bring in that skull, make it a little larger. Again, it's not quite a perfect fit, but I just want some of that information. Then I need, oh, those are great. Sheesh, these ones are like straight up. I forgot about these ones. These ones are great because they're like, they really are in a profile view. But I'm gonna grab some of these teeth. Use the lasso tool here to pull these out of it. Hey, what's up, Q Void? What's up, Mr. Fuzzy? Oh, hey, what's up, Jake Posh? Oh, wow. Cool. Yeah, I haven't tried to stream in a long time. I usually just do it with Proco. But I'm going to be making like a, you know, just, I'm going to be jumping back into YouTube and stuff. So all this I have to get familiar with again. Oh, dang, that looks crazy right there. Man, the happy accents that occur with this, like that looks crazy right there. That looks neat. Watch, like take this, duplicate it. Some of the upper beak shape. Letting this stuff, some of this stuff start to fuse in here and just become texture. And maybe not all of it will make it into the final, but it adds some visual interest. How are things going for you, Jake Posh? Yeah, it is. Prehistoric Planet is on Apple Plus, and I'm not, you know, working for them or anything. It's just so good. So good. I think it's the best dinosaur show yet. And they recently did the Ice Age one, which is so good. Might be my favorite one yet, this Ice Age one. Oh, that's cool right there. Damn, that's sick. This is Xenomorphy vibe. It's not so bad. Man, I mentioned to Eric, I just moved into a new place. Like me and my fiance, you know, moving to the next step in our lives. We're engaged, bringing our families together, and we're in this house. And we thought it was going to be really cool. My fiance is so sweet. She's like, going to put me in this room, my studio. It'll have really good lighting and stuff, but it's got skylights back here that are making like insane glare on my screen, and there is a remote control to close them, but we have not located it. It's like in the garage, like somewhere hidden in a bunch of boxes. I have to dig it out. I'm trying to just get back into work. I don't know how many of you guys have had done. Oh, Eric, you just had a crazy move. Yes, saying we moved right around Christmas, or yeah, it's really literally right after Christmas, and just starting to get things hung. I'm gonna move my desk down this way a little bit more, so my art wall will be directly behind me. I'm gonna close those skylights, or at least have the controls so I can open and close them. And I'm gonna hang art all the way up the wall. It'll look pretty cool. Okay, now I need something. I want this arch in the neck. This one is great. This bear, I like that natural arch he already has. Scale it up. Dang, even that looks cool right there. It's crazy. Just the sort of, I just love the abstract patterns that emerge in here. You know, I'd have to work on it more, integrating it, but I think that looks pretty neat. Looks a little more like robust. So again, what I'll do is I'll duplicate these two layers and create a variant where they're flattened. So I just like have it for my records here, these different versions or states that I could come back to. In this case, I'm gonna mask out parts of this. Then I need my cool shoulders and traps. All right, see, Eric, thanks for dropping in, dude. Appreciate it. Have a good one. Yeah, I'm gonna try to stream here more regularly. want to do an art book. In this case, I need to, make the value adjustments to posterizing. I need to do a little more manually because this creature has got so many dark spots. I just need to, it would have got too dark if I just ran my action. So I have to go do it by hand. Oh, that's interesting. Look at that, like a little guy with a big head. Wow, that's crazy. Man, I love this. Unexpected. That's interesting, like a creepy little golem pterodactyl guy, like a little Rhamphorhynchus or whatever he's called, one of those little small tyrannosaurs. Yeah, I want to do an art book featuring a lot of this kind of stuff, this Dino Horror stuff. And I want to do a segment that's just all these cool, like these little busts, little studies. I think of them as studies, like warm-ups in my day. I like doing them. Relatively quick to do. Hey, what's up? Is that Gianni? Johnny? What's up, Johnny? Thank you. Any of you guys, if you're like, you haven't been to a stream before with me or you've been to a Proco one like this, those are pretty different because we have the Proco team guiding things and, there's a lot of people coming in because, Stan's a big platform. But if you're someone, who had some questions that I wasn't able to answer in a past stream because, I was taking other questions or something, now is a really good time. It's a pretty small group here, so if you go for anything you want to talk about or would want to, I don't know, if you want me to address anything, you have any questions about art, concept art, working in the video game industry, creature design, you feel free to go for it. Oh, monster classes, okay. Yeah, so basically I was trying to think like what we could do here. Right now I'm just sort of warming up, but I was thinking, in a game like Left 4 Dead, you have the special infected. Like there's the base zombies, and then there's the special class of zombies, like hunter, smoker, boomer, all that kind of deal. Or say in a game like, Destiny, you've got your different classes of enemies. There's tanky enemies, and there's casters or ranged attack enemies. Basically that, like I was thinking we could come up with some together, but within this theme of the Ice Age stuff, the horror. And right now I'm just starting with this guy because, there was nobody in the stream initially, and I'm just like, what the hell should I do? I'm going to do a cool dinosaur guy. But just had this sketch I've been doing in my sketchbook of these, like, dinosaur mutant dudes. It's been a thing I've been doing. I really enjoy it. Nice, dude. Thank you. That was from a stream I did with Proco a little bit ago. That's what I'm teaching a class. I teach workshops. I don't know how much you guys are familiar with what I do, but I do these workshops. It's something I really like to do. They're sort of different. They're less focused on like fundamentals in the strict sense. Honestly, it's more like we're doing a cool art project together as a group, and we're like exploring a theme, and I really get excited about themes. It's probably going to be a case I'll end up doing like 3 workshops a year now. This will be my winter spring one. And then I'll do one in the summer. And then I really like doing the designing monsters in the fall, the Halloween monster theme one. But we take a theme and we explore it all together. The creature ones typically have a sculpting component because I love sculpting. You guys can't see right now, but I've got sculptures all around off camera, and this guy's from a past workshop. The unicorn assignment. This is like one of my favorite assignments I've ever done with students, actually. It was like an introductory assignment where we took... Oh, here comes my fiance. What up, girl? Yeah, we took a unicorn, which, you know, for all intents and purposes is like a not a monster, not really something you'd think of as a monster. And the challenge in the class was to turn it into one. Like we would talk about the more, you know, esoteric, or the more, what's it? Oh, thank you, sweetie. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Vietnamese iced coffee. Yeah. Is it Gianni? Giany. Anyways, yeah, we took a unicorn, which is usually seen as sort of like a, you know, symbol of purity, benevolence, stuff like that. And then we had a lot of discussions about like what makes a monster. What are the attributes that make something a monster, make something scary? And once we had those conversations, then we decided to use our observations and apply them like tools or like principles, like to our unicorn design, and make it scary. And I thought that it was like actually one of my favorite assignments I've done with students. But the new workshop coming up is Designing Monsters Ice Age. It's all Ice Age mammals. It's one of my favorite topics since I was a little boy. It's not actually it's not necessarily strictly Ice Age, the theme of the class, because some of the animals we'll talk about are from different epochs, different periods. Miocene and Oligocene, different animals that I really like. Fun to play with. It's too many spikes right now. It's getting a little crazy. Just chop right into that. Maybe some of you guys have heard this idea of like areas of rest, right? Well, there was no rest there. It was just all craziness, where maybe what I want is some kind of fall off with these spikes, treat it more like a mane, and they get smaller. Maybe some of them are larger as we get, almost like hair, as we get up to the mane. That's interesting. Let's think of birds of paradise and pheasants. Those big long quills they have. And sometimes what I'll do is go back. You know, there's all this mashing of different elements. And so, you know, lighting is different and things will get kind of crazy looking. So at a certain point, I'll come through and the lasso tool or with a brush, I will restate the big cast shadows. Some of that I want to bring back, some of that like bounce light under there. There's a bit of noise in the shadow. One of my favorite, this is Asimov Sterling, or Starling, 806 says, one of my favorite methods of creating monsters is to take one creature and make it into another, splitting a familiar human head to make a maw. Arms become phalanges and leather wings. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like taking things that we all recognize as normal and acceptable, and then changing them, or using them in a way that breaks the rules of expected visuals, not consistent with like what you're making, things that are inconsistent with what you'd expect. This seems to me to be a big part of horror, at least body horror. I'm gonna wrap this guy up and then we'll do the exercise if you guys are down. So what I was thinking we would do is begin to do some brainstorming about mob classes for a game. Like imagine, you know, we were gonna make. Oops, my values got thrown off there. This screen glare is insane. It just cannot see things accurately. Okay, but what I can do is, so grab all my grays. Don't like that tangent. It's like a bit too close to the edge there. Bring it down. Wrap up this shape right here. I'm all over the place. I haven't done a stream in a long time. Thank you guys for your patience. But I want to start doing them more. I need to kind of just get out, interacting with. It's easy to get. You guys know this. It's like easy to get in a, or find yourself working in a vacuum in art, and it can be hard to come out of it. And when you do, I don't know how many of you have experience doing this kind of stuff, but when you do like public stuff, it can, you're vulnerable. You're making shit publicly, and so it's easier not to do it. I guess is my cure, not get online. And this artwork right here, Johnny, is I have a plan to make an art book. I've been wanting to make an art book for a long time, and I've been doing this Dino Horror themed work, quite a bit of it, and I really enjoy it, and just getting a lot of positive feedback. Like, people seem to like it, and not just like it, but like it and engage with it to a degree that is like, is very, to me, like unexpected and kind of mind-boggling. And it's like, oh, you want me to make more dinosaur mutant guys? Okay, like that's how it feels. Like I feel like all I need to do is make a bunch of crazy dinosaur mutant guys all day long, and pretty shortly I'll have a book that I can share that I'll feel proud of and excited about. So that's like what this is about, getting on streaming and working on that project, beginning to chip away at images and connect with people. Okay, I'm gonna save this guy and then we're gonna move on to the exercise. Let's call him Ptero Sapien. But let's open up a new doc and let's all work together here. Okay, so you guys saw the notes on the stream. I'm getting ready to teach this Designing Monsters Ice Age class. The idea is you're making horror themed design. In the class, we're going to be mainly focusing on like one design over the course of the 6 weeks. You're taking the thing to a finish, going through the full process. But part of what we're doing here is like what we would do in the first 2 weeks of the class, which is generating a bunch of ideas. And we need prompts. We need like themes. And usually when we're designing horror stuff, it's going to end up, at least in my life, when I think of this, it's going to end up in a video game or it's going to end up in a movie. In a movie, you probably just have one or two, a handful of designs. Most of the time in a movie, it's not like filled with creatures. But in a game, it could be pretty different. I mentioned Left 4 Dead. Games like Left 4 Dead, Back 4 Blood, Destiny. You need a whole suite of enemies of different classes that fill different needs, gameplay needs. And that's the way we're going to approach this here, is we need some like basic enemy classes. So what I'm hoping is you guys, just make this more fun. Like you guys can help me generate some ideas, feed me some ideas for enemy mob classes. What's one we could start with? Feel free to type them in the chat. I'd say one is like a grunt, sort of basic melee. What's another one? Range, a primate pack. That's interesting, but if you know what I'm talking about, I'm not sure if it really makes sense what I'm saying here, but let me show you some old artwork. Here we go. Okay, so these sketches, this was like exploration for a game that Turtle Rock was exploring after Evolve. They were trying to figure out what they were going to do next, and I was doing some explorations for a game. This game kind of shifted and evolved and became, I believe, the basis for Back 4 Blood, like with some pivots. But I did a bunch of sheets like this, exploring different potential enemy factions, and where we explored the ramp up in enemy type or the full cast of enemy characters. These are very rough, but they capture that cast. Here I have like the sick boy, these little golem-esque little guys that are kind of retching and throwing up, and they're all sick, look malnourished and gross, basically zombie type guys. Next, this hellhound, like a real fast minion type creature that would deliver this flaming barrel of oil or fuel, so it's something you gotta hit before it gets too close and explodes. Next was the Thrasher. This one was inspired by the Smoker. The Smoker goes around Left 4 Dead and lashes out with its tongue and pulls the victim to it and beats it up. This guy would use this big long vine arms, grab the player, bring it to it. When it got close, it had this sort of like hacksaw arm that would use to attack you. The idea with this faction was they were like basically like garbage golems, like golems like made from some kind of parasite or creature, alien entity would get into just random objects and could turn them into these constructs. This one, the Poop Smith was a lot like a boomer, big giant character, big giant monster, inspired by like a porta potty. It would belch out crap out of the porta potty at you, and then that would basically call in a bunch of sick boys. You know, it would act like you're marked now. Tarpet Hulk would, you know, something like the Tank, a big bruiser type character, and then they had like big boss creatures. But my point is, each of these represent a different common enemy, class, trope, or archetype. Well, thank you, Johnny. Basically, what I'm trying to get you guys to key in on here is like, what are those classic tropes? What are they? There's a grunt, basic melee fighter, ranged. Maybe like, I like to include mounted or shock troop, or sometimes think of it as like special unit, something that hits a little harder, it's a little faster, it costs a little more money. It's funny how I use right there, I'm using like terminology or thinking about it the way, like I can't help but be affected by old school Warcraft. Maybe a lot of you guys are too young to remember that, but old school Warcraft 2, Tides of Darkness, you know, just I really, and StarCraft, stuff like that. I'm thinking of that ramp up of types of creatures. Yeah, Swarmer was a good one. Asimov mentioned a Swarmer. But where would you put Swarmer? Like I think you mentioned the 8-pack, or one of you guys mentioned the 8-pack. Johnny did. I'd put those together. So primate pack. That's actually a really good one. But I could see that working a couple ways. Where either is like, that's just what you get when you get a bunch of grunts. It's like a pack of zombies, a zombie rush in any zombie game. Maybe in this game, this sort of Ice Age horror game. And I don't know what the core premise is. Maybe a museum has gotten out of hand. It's like Night at the Museum, but it's like Nightmare at the Museum. Oh, that's funny. Let's write that down. It's like stupid, but it works for this exercise. Nightmare at the Museum. Watch that movie for the first time with my fiance and her daughter. Pretty cute. But so let's imagine the Brea tar pits. Somehow some kind of, you know, creepy micro parasite, whatever, escapes from a dig. There's a new creature, some new animal that's been unearthed, and you know, it's exceptionally well preserved. They bring it to do studies on it. Gets out, turns out it's got some creepy, you know, parasite, and that gets out into the exhibit and turns everything to life into gnarly zombies, and then you have this outbreak where the epicenter begins at the tar pits. In a lot of ways, that's just the premise of the Back 4 Blood game. It's really, really similar. But I just want to focus in on the tar pits so we can play with those kind of creature designs. So yeah, either the Swarmer primate is just what you get when your apes, your prehistoric apes and hominids, your prehistoric baboons, all that stuff, like when those get infected. Or this could be maybe some kind of ability connected to a caster or controller class. You know, something like, remember in Left 4 Dead, there's the witch. If the witch sees you, it calls in a horde. Maybe there's some creature that's a little more intelligent, and it can sick guys on you. It can like send these things out to attack you or to mob you. So I like for that setting here. What else? Let's go through a couple more, and then we'll start making some. Swarmers, what's happened when the exhibit is assembled incorrectly and then infected? That's fun. I like the idea that, you know, if you've ever been to the tar pits, there are actual pits there that you can go see that are like still active. Like you go and you look down and there's a big crazy pile of bones with a bunch of animals all mashed together. And imagine if some kind of weird, you know, alien entity, energy source, whatever, you know, malevolent force got down into that. You know, imagine like the game Diablo, right? The way the necromancer character works. Some kind of force, spell, something got down into that pit and then caused all those things to rise up, but to fuse as one creature. That's what I'm imagining, is that's like the vibe of the whole, that would be the vibe of the whole game. Every single creature would work in that way. You know, they'd be these mashups of different animals from the area. We'd have to take liberties because there aren't any ancient apes and monkeys found at the Brea tar pits in Los Angeles because they didn't evolve there. Okay, but we need a tank. Just help me with this part real quick, guys. This is good for you just as students. If you were to take my class, I'm going to make you think this through. Because if you want to be a concept artist, like, this is just like classic standard shit, you know, that you need to know about, like, building up a cast of creatures. These are pretty common tropes that you need to have a handle on. They'd be useful to have useful to have a handle on. Tank. Yeah, exactly. A heavy sub-boss. Yeah, exactly. So let's say let's do a mini boss, sub boss. Yeah, same thing. Let's say big boss, overlord. We got a grunt. We got ranged. We got a sort of mounted special, a caster, tank, a mini boss, boss over. These ones are kind of similar. Okay, let's just work with that. I'm going to create a new. Let's choose one. You guys let me know which one. What's on the menu today? Hey, what's up? So Sinful Saint. We are coming up with some ideas for like a range of enemy class types for a hypothetical like first-person shooter game called Nightmare at the Museum. So it's like imagine a sort of zombie outbreak at a place like the Page Museum. That's the other name for the tar pits at La Brea, the tar pit museum. Imagine there's some kind of outbreak there and all the bone pits start to come to life and these creatures are animated and turn into these gnarly mutant monstrosities and they're running amok and starting to spread out into the greater Los Angeles area and just tearing everything apart. You know, it's chaos in downtown LA, with the epicenter emerging from the tar pits. That's the core idea, and we're coming up with these different gameplay classes or tropes, and I'm referencing games like RTSs, the different kind of classes you get in a game like Warcraft or StarCraft, and the same kind of the classes that you get in a game like Left 4 Dead or Back 4 Blood. Yeah, in this case, because I'm getting ready to teach a workshop all about this stuff. I just like doing these thematic workshops. It's wintertime, and I'm doing a lot of horror stuff, so we're doing like Ice Age horror. That's the idea. But the context, like the reason, you know, is because you would use these sort of ideas in a game, hypothetically, or like in a film. Right now we're focusing more on gameplay mechanics for enemy types. These are some of the classics, I'd say. I usually am thinking in terms of like 5 to 7 of these classic classes. I'll show you some more artwork real quick if you guys might be interested to see. Yeah, here we go. Okay. Now this stuff was for a MOBA project I worked on quite a long time ago. Now these aren't exclusively like monster guys. This is more like MOBA, so you have more like humanoid type creatures. There's like a basic grunt type warrior, a ranged character. I have a sort of I remember I mentioned like a special character mounted or a flyer, a caster, and then a boss. So here it's only 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like at minimum I'll do 5, but you could add more. Basic grunt. This guy can kind of float, like levitate, and shoots these like energy pyramid deals. This guy is hard hitting, has a sort of diving dash attack, and probably some other sort of quill shot attack, highly mobile. This one's more like levitating. It's not maybe truly flying, but maybe it gets some advantage in terms of mobility across the map, where this guy is like true flight and can really move around really fast. This one's a summoner, and this one's a boss. Or alternatively, here's some orcs, or sort of orc knockoffs for this game I worked on. These like grunts, range guys, they throw these big spears. Special character or caster, but you know, these are orcs, so I didn't really want to do a typical caster. This guy, I was looking at the Mongolian eagle, the wolf hunters that use the golden eagles, and this guy's using like a big eagle type condor creature to hunt enemies, and has this big lobo hook, can like pull guys and stun them, lock them in place, or pull them a little closer, and then the eagle can strike, you know, while they're all chained, while they're locked up with the chain. Then a boss. Yeah, massive bear exactly would be the heavy. So hopefully you guys kind of understand where I'm coming from here in terms of the archetypes. Now we're going to choose one from this list you guys made. Which class do you want to explore first? Grunt, ranged, mounted, special, shock troop, caster, tank, mini boss, or boss? I don't want to do boss first. Let's save it because I'm going to do more streams. All Ice Age. Any thoughts? Yeah, tank bear would be pretty sick. I always want to do big tanky stuff because I love that stuff, but I did, you know, I've been posting a lot of content of doing that kind of thing. I will probably do it in the over the next couple streams, but let's start with something outside, a little bit different, either Swarmer or the ranged caster. Let's do caster. That sounds crazy and a little challenging. Let's do a caster. So what does that mean in this context, again, of the Nightmare at the Museum? It's Ice Age horror, and we're going to do the caster. This is where I like, when I'm really trying to do a good job, you know, with my concept stuff, I like to establish my aim, like what we're trying to do. And this is our aim here. This is our goal for the day. Nightmare at the Museum. our caster class. When you guys think of the Ice Age animals, prehistoric mammals, I don't know how familiar you guys are with that kind of stuff, but what comes to mind? This is where I would usually start with students. It's just when those words, when I say Ice Age, then I say caster, what comes to mind? Go ahead and drop that in the chat. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, bro, that's where I'd go. Is like when I'm doing this list making process at the beginning, there's no like, I don't hold anything back. I think it's okay to even like straight up shamelessly identify where the ideas are coming from or the reference points. And I'm thinking of Zinch, what you mentioned there, like the changer of ways kind of deal, that kind of theme. But imagine, we take that theme of heavy mutation manipulation. Maybe it's more of the we have more of the tar, heavy mutation. That sounds good to me immediately, but what I want you to do right now is think more specifically about the creatures we're going to pull from. So we have those themes. Yeah, frozen, ice, ancient. We got that. We're all together there because we're in the Ice Age. Now this is where, kind of demands that you guys do some Googling or some searching or, try to dredge the depths of your memory, of your guys' knowledge of Ice Age animals. What are some animal types that we could pull from? We're going to use as like our base. I have some that come to mind immediately, but I'm going to wait a second for you guys to, this is part of the point. This is part of the fun. Hey, what's up, Mr. Biscuits? Yep, good old Ice Age. This is my jam. That's why this class is going to be fun. An Ice Age turtle. Don't be getting crazy. Ice Age turtle. Oh, he wasn't a turtle. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, he was that's pretty good. He was I think he's the class Xenotheres. They're related to armadillos and stuff. Xenothrans. The Xenothrans are an ancient superorder of mammals, including modern armadillos, sloths, and anteaters, characterized by unique spinal joints, with ancient relatives like the giant tank-like glyptodonts, Doedicurus, massive armored beasts that roamed the Americas, evolving from early South American ancestors into diverse forms. Yeah, basically all the sloths, the giant sloths, pangolins, all those guys are from this order of animals. And you guys have probably seen these. This is Doedicurus. Doedicurus is the one that has the big spiked club tail, and Glyptodont is this one right here. He's more stubby. Here's Glyptodont. That's a pretty cool one. However, to my mind, that makes me think more tank. So that's probably something I'm, if we're going to have later tank, mini boss, and boss, that's really valuable, like real estate, or conceptual, like that's really good ammo, and we want to save it for when we need it for the right guy. I could see a world where you could make that work, Jake, but I think I'd use Glyptodont parts later. What else? Yeah, Megalosaurus, that's a pretty good one. Irish elk. Okay, cool. So I'm going to start writing down your ideas here. Irish elk is pretty good. How the heck did I spell that? What the hell? That's some crazy spelling, Scott. Irish elk. One thing I think, remember we mentioned, yeah, terror. Ooh, there we go. Terror bird. That's cool. That's not where I was going. I was over at the tar pits recently and taking a bunch of photos, and there's a whole section of big raptors. There's a bird called the Teratorn. You guys should look that guy up. Teratorn. It's like a giant it's like a cross between a giant condor and a huge eagle. So that's kind of where my head was going, because I was thinking, when you were talking about Zinch, I'm thinking about the changer of ways and that like vulture theme, and that seems pretty good. There's Skeksis. It's like how can we get an excuse to draw some Skeksis? Here's Teratorn. I had too many R's going on in mine. Teratornus. Teratorn is an extinct genus of huge North American birds of prey, the best known of the Teratorns. There are two species are known to have existed: Teratornus Merriami, yeah, it's a lady Merriam, named after Merriam, Merriami, and Teratornus woodburnensis, guy named Woodburn. A large number of fossil and subfossil bones representing more than 100 individuals have been found in locations in California, Oregon, southern Nevada, Arizona, and Florida, though most are from the California tar pits. That's just because of those tar pits that we have so many remains, because They're actually, like, bird remains are not necessarily, I don't think they're that easy to preserve because they're light, you know, hollow boned. So I don't think we find as many of them. But in the tar pits, they're very well preserved. It's by far the best known and most commonly, of the two, Pterodactyl mariami is the best known and most commonly found. Up to 100 specimens have been found, most from Brea tar pits. It stood nearly 30 inches tall. That's pretty impressive, with a wingspan of almost 13 feet. That's crazy. 12 and a half feet. That's ridiculous. Wow. Making it about a third bigger than existing condors. It became extinct at the very end of the Pleistocene some 10,000 years ago. So that's right along the same time as all the other big mammals go extinct. And that it would make sense, because if this is effectively a giant super version of a condor, then it was probably dependent upon all those big giant, you know, the other megafauna species to feed on. And when they go extinct, then it kind of loses its job, so to speak. Okay, I won't spend time. Anyways, he's got some really cool bones. I've got some good photos of that we could potentially work with. But I also like terror birds was that's a pretty good reference. Now, the terror birds, hey, what's up, Christian E? What's up, man? Yeah, I'm experimenting with streaming on my own. This is my first try in quite a while. There's some bugs to work out, but my goal here is to get on a lot more often and chip away at these little projects with people. And right now, we're coming up with a cast of enemy mob like units for a hypothetical first-person shooter game, horror game. Basically, like ripping off like Left 4 Dead and Back 4 Blood, but instead of it becoming the creatures becoming zombies, this like parasite or amoeba or whatever it is, like alien entity, gets off and starts to gets out and begins to run amok in the Brea tar pits in Los Angeles. So our hypothetical made-up project is called Nightmare at the Museum, and we're taking all these kind of classic enemy classes and we're going to be developing them visually. And today we're just doing one, and we're doing a caster. So we're doing some brainstorming around this idea of what that caster would look like. We're honing in on the changer of ways from Zinch and 40K, condors and vultures, Irish elk, terror birds, a terratorn. So I think we're going to just sort of start there. Let's get into... Now, I immediately kind of want to see it be more bipedal. Kind of want to see it be more... Can't help it, because I want to go more Zinch. I'm just going to start really loose here, and then we're going to begin to photo bash over the top. So I'm not getting too precious about the drawing, because the drawing, in this case, is just a means to an end to get us to the next step. I'm going to do a fill beneath the drawing with a darker gray. I still want to see some of that drawing, even though it's really loose. I want to keep some of that information as I start to photo bash over the top. Okay, collapse that down. And now we start to look for some cool photos that we can use. I got a big pack here that I put together for the class, the Designing Monsters Ice Age class. There's a big old pack of freebies in there. When you sign up, whether you're doing the participation or the audit, get this stuff. There's a time-lapse tutorial. It's all narrated. And it's one of the reels I featured on Instagram. It's like this is the full length. It's like over half an hour or about half an hour, where I go in to make one of these bear monsters. Got my tool presets, some other example artwork, and then I have a big zip file of photo ref I took over at the tar pits very recently. Did a trip over there to gather imagery in preparation for the workshop. So you guys will have access to all this, and I'll be showing you how to make use of it. But I know I took some photos of Terratorns. I thought I did. If I didn't, we're going to have to... Oh, they might be on my phone. Shoot. They're not on here. But let's grab some things from here anyways. If any of you are in my Discord, if you could DM me if you find any good photos of Terratorns, photos of terror bird fossils, that'd be pretty cool and useful. Otherwise, right now, I have an idea that's occurring to me that I think could be interesting. If you think about it, the core shape of this horse, this is like a Ice Age horse. We had horses in North America for a while, and they went extinct at the same time all the other megafauna went extinct. We didn't have horses in America for like 8,000 years, and then Europeans brought them back over. Some of them got loose. The Spanish brought them over here. They got loose. Native Americans got a hold of them, and you know they became a giant part of Native American culture. The Plains Indians, like the Sioux and Cheyenne. Anyways, but there were horses like way far back that evolved here in North America. This is like where they evolved from, their point of origin, from what I understand. But when you look at that shape, to my eye, watch. When I look at these like bird skulls, there's actually some similarities, at least in terms of the taper and the big like orbital, big eye cavity, to what you see here. So I'm going to work with that. I think that could be interesting. It's like, let's take a horse skull over here. This is all recorded, by the way. I'm probably going to put it up afterwards. So if you got a bail or something, or you want to get access to it later, I'll probably put it up on my YouTube channel. Okay, I got this. Well, I'm kind of doing a faux pas, making a mistake. I like to do the conversion to the two-tone before I shrink down the image while I still have all this like information from the photo. There's an action here. You guys will get access to that too. It just makes it a lot faster. It's a custom Photoshop action that can convert everything to two-tone. That looks pretty good. Grab it, shrink it down, bring it in here, and I'm going to grab this neck vertebrae and cut that out and sort of move it behind. Okay, that's a pretty good start. Then I'm going to, let's grab, if anyone can find me a bird skull, that'd be cool, but no pressure. I can grab some here. I mentioned before in streams and other places, if you're comfortable with photobashing, the idea of like taking stuff from the internet, these images, that kind of deal, then what you could do is you just, like, that's part of why I provided these images from the museum. The museum is a public space. You're allowed to take photos there. So I went to the tar pits and grabbed a bunch, and we could just use that stuff. But I think it would be fun to show you guys how we could make use of, let's see here, of the bird skull in here as well. Sometimes it can take a bit. This is like the boring part that isn't necessarily the best for streaming, like the digging around to find these images and stuff. But one from Skulls Unlimited. This is a great site. Skulls Unlimited. You can get these skull replicas of all kinds of different animals. Man, I want to do a collab with them really bad. I would love to. I own a couple of their skulls. But I feel like there's something here where I could find a way to combine these two. That'd be interesting. When some of you who aren't familiar with my process, I use this in Photoshop Select Subject. Right here, Select Subject. And it's a pretty powerful, quick way to quickly isolate the subject in an image, especially one like this, where it's like single subject, more like product photography. It can struggle with like multi-figure, more complex imagery. But in this case, it's like really, really good and fast. Then I'm going to convert it to a two-tone image. In this case, I don't think my shortcut is going to work very good. My action that I set up, photobash carving. Watch. Because it's so, the local values are so dark that it just kind of gets wiped out. I have to do it myself. So I'm using threshold tool, and I use the slider to have a bit more control. And I flatten that down. Notice it's all white, right? That's no good. We don't want that. We want these other values. So I'm going to sample these grays, taking all the white, turning it to that mid-tone gray, taking all my black. Okay, then I can grab this, shrink it down. Sometimes if there's a piece that I think I may have use of later, or some need for later, I'll just, grab it, duplicate it, and bring it over to the side. So I can easily grab it later. But I brought a duplicate, bring it over here, shrink it down. So how could we use this here? Maybe it's about cutting into this part and letting some of that like nasal cavity that you get in birds show. That's kind of cool. It's kind of interesting. Didn't give me a lot there, but it gave me something. And I can take this lower jaw and let's make it a bit more dramatic. Is that Tom? Is that the Wonky? Hey, what's up, Wonky? I don't know, is that Tom or who is that? Wish I knew what your guys' names are. But thank you for hopping in right now. And thanks for joining in on the class. most of the time I've been doing my workshops through Gumroad, and this time we're trying something different. I'm teaming up with Proco, and they're just helping me make it a better experience. Gonna help me elevate the experience of my workshops. And after the workshop, the plan is to edit all the material, take all the recordings. Each of the 6 meetings will be fully recorded. But, to just put that out in the world, I don't really like to do that because, we take like breaks to eat dinner and use the restroom. And, it's sort of, it has that like wonderful imperfection of a real event that when you're there and you're a part of it is cool. When you go back and watch it, like later on, for someone that weren't there, it doesn't have the same meaning or the same impact. So I haven't at all released any of the recordings from my past workshops, but I'm going to begin to. I'm going to take everything we do after the fact, tighten it up, make it real nice and easy to follow along with, and then everyone who took the workshop already, they're going to get it for free. You've already done it. You were there. It's just kind of a perk. If you want it, you'll get access to it and you can download it. And then anyone who wasn't there but would like to, get some feel for how it was, they can get a copy of it. That's my plan at the moment. Okay, we need some more. I want like a better beak. That's like kind of weak as a beak, I think. Oh, Keelan. Oh, cool. Oh, yo, what's up, dude? From Southeast Alaska. What's it like up there right now in Southeast Alaska? Okay. Now I need some more bones. Got to get more bones in here, guys. I need... And this one's always so good, this bear. I think I'm going to use it really quick. Just kind of calling to me. It has a good arch. I just used it earlier, too. Some of these images are just like go-tos. You find they're useful again and again and again for certain types of images. And they suit my preferences. I think they look good. Take this. Run the filter. Just the perspective on it a little bit so it fits a bit better. It's not great, but a bit better. Gets us something. Bring it over there. Put it on top. That's interesting, those like mammoth bones, the back legs. I'm gonna grab those. Take these. I want to take out the scaffolding from the mounting process. Cut out some of that negative space there. And the lower legs of the bone. 2 legs, 2 bones in your lower legs, the tibia and the fibula. I always remember the big bone, the thicker one, tibia. I remember I used the letter T, tough, thick, and the smaller one, fibula, is fine. Fibula, fine, so like skinny. That's how I help myself remember it. And I leave some of that stuff. I like sometimes these little fragments. I think of it as like it's almost like the image's heritage. It's like some record of where it came from, and it adds like energy and gesture. I don't like where the arms are at right now, so we gotta focus on that here. Need some feathers or some wings, or man, one thing we could do is maybe use, like I'm looking at these rib bones. Like, I want feathers. I want something that feels like feathers without just going straight to tar and stuff. I'm going to do that. I'll probably have some of that tar, dangly, gross, horrible sticking stuff. But what about rib bones like this used to create a feeling of feathers? Let's try it. Take this. Boom. Isolate it. Do my threshold adjustment. Then I could grab this. Oh, this is going to be interesting. Grab this, duplicate it. Oh, that's crazy. That's kind of cool. So using ribs as the wing shapes. I don't hate it. It's kind of interesting. It does give me some feeling of wings. Maybe I could like bring in some other limbs. Like I immediately start thinking of like deer limbs and I need to move my notes here. Crap. Like I'm a big fan of wings that aren't really wings. Like wings that don't really help you fly. I think they look cool. So like for example, taking like a deer leg or a horse leg or something. Okay, yeah, there's some good limbs here. I like these leg bones right here and the scapula. Oh, look at that. That's crazy. That was an accident. But what if... That's crazy. What if the back leg... What if the wings sort of had like legs, like back legs that helped hold up this weird mass? I'm using my distort tool to transform things and move them. That was actually too far back. That's interesting. I don't know. It's maybe a little weird. It's like he's got a cane or something. I'm not sure I like it though. I think instead of just cut it here and then do something different. Like a little talon or claw. It's like you take that deer leg and then have it turn into some kind of creepy. Limbs are always interchangeable with phalanges. Yeah, totally. One of my favorite creature designs is the hag from Back 4 Blood. I'm not sure if you guys know it, recognize it. I think that's a really good design. It's one of my favorites. As the mouth and face is a bunch of arms, like this, and you get swallowed down it. What if the elk's ribs and legs have fused with the wings? Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Is like these wings are not true wings, or I guess if it's a supernatural like zombie, it doesn't really matter. We could do whatever we want, and we could make it fly. But I kind of want them to be wings that don't necessarily feel like they could actually fly. I think that's kind of neat. I love like the Shiplet brothers always do those in their sculptures. A lot of Frazetta creatures feel like that, like flying creatures. They couldn't really fly. Let's see if we can bring in some human elements. I'm beginning to really not be able to see as it gets later in the day, so I'm gonna have to call it soon. But and we'll work on this more later. I think I'd make the wings. I think it'd be cool if they're more like a big tangle of bone, of like limb bones, but sort of like hooved, skinny, delicate feeling limb bones. And then I need to bring in a human skull in here. I just gotta, just works, The catacombs. I can't remember exactly where they're at. Somewhere in Europe, right guys? Somewhere in Italy? like beneath the Vatican or something crazy like that. There's like somewhere in Italy or France, there's like catacombs where people are buried, and those photos, there's skulls from those, and they're just skulls in all these different angles, just hundreds of skulls shoved into the wall, and they're great for this stuff because you can just find a bunch of skulls at a bunch of different angles. I want to wrap this up. I'm going kayaking with my girl. Got to see some of that mouth, inside of the mouth there. I like to use that gray background because it allows me to come in and start putting teeth, which you just get a lot of bang for your buck with teeth. Like it's just such a, the human mind, we're so like, I think hardwired not get freaking eaten or something. Like we just really, we're looking at people and people smile, that means like friendly, we like them, they're nice. And when predators snarl at us and bare their teeth, we get afraid of them. Freaked out by sharks and tigers. And just think if you can add in your little thumbnail sketch. That's the way I think of these, is like this is like a thumbnail sketch, kind of a glorified one. Bringing that white just immediately makes this more interesting, I think. Okay, now I'm going to show you really quick, like some of my, this is not finished. I would work on this a little more, but the truth is I don't want to, I can get really kooky and really go down the rabbit hole, like obsessing over these things to get them just right, and I don't want to do that. It's not my favorite thing to do on a live stream. I'll save that for my own time. but there are like quick things, like finishing moves that I do to make something look cool quick. And I'll show you some of those real quick. One is using this texture brush, and I'll go in on limbs. Maybe you've seen me do this before. Come in on the hands, and it makes the hands look like they've been used to swipe at somebody. And I'll do some of that on the face, the mouth, because maybe he's bit someone. These limbs, maybe they've been used to attack with targets, strike out at enemies. Then I'll go back and use my lasso tool and quickly say a little more about these volumes and cast shadows and push some things back in space that are not as important. Right now I did it on a separate layer, but watch, I just draw that in, then I control click on my main layer, and I go mask this out, and so now those shadows are in the right spot. You can also just, draw that in. Maybe this arm's casting a shadow on the other arm. Start to do things like, think of these like little veins going up the bicep. You get some rolling of the shoulder. And I'm kind of making up some anatomy in here. But it's informed enough by reality to be cool. You're just like, that looks cool. Bring some talons onto these little feet from the mammoth. Nasty worm booty thing. I'll bring some worm booties in here. I'm using a different brush for that. Usually I use this nib. It's sort of like a crow quill pen. I like the mark. It's great for drawing. But when I'm doing things like wormy things with taper, I use just like a basic round brush with a diameter shift on it, or diameter sensitivity, and that's what allows me to get this the taper feels really naturalistic. A little more hump in the back. Drawing a little more eyebrow right here. There's a process of refinement, you know, to really get this to look nice. There's a process of refinement. And getting some of the angles to read better, some of the perspective on the shapes to read better. But you chip away at it, and what I like is that this photobashing stuff, I can get something promising pretty quick. And it's kind of up to me, like how crazy and obsessive I'm being, how fast I can wrap it up or get it to a place where I'm going to show it to people. Sometimes it's fast, and sometimes it's not. Like those hanging guts. Sometimes I'm looking for a bit of like a material or like texture, shape, contrast. So I bring in like this little bit of hairy bits under the chin. Let's say a little bit of like little grody. I don't even know what this is. I can think of like Skeksis stuff and vultures. You know, they have that bit of collar of feathers, and it gets kind of caked or matted with blood. Maybe I'll put some of those on the forearm. Doesn't look quite so sketchy. It's a really, really useful concept. I learned from one of my coworkers at Riot. He was so good. June On. And he was a principal artist there, which means he's kind of like principal artists there are, you know, they're teachers, sort of artistic authority figures. You know, someone the rest of the company and team look to for guidance in terms of taste and what's good and what's cool. Guys like Moby Frankie and but June said, you know, like we've all heard of this idea of, yeah, like big, medium, small, right? There's like isn't there like a whole podcast or something, big, medium, small? That idea is a really powerful idea, but I heard him say it's less about big, medium, small, more about big, medium, smallest. I was like, what? What's he talking about? And it's what I was just doing right here. You know, I've got like big, interesting shapes, some big, interesting shapes. You know, this horse bird skull, big wing shape, big hands. But then the smallest ones would be like these tiny little quills of feather or fur. These small little wrinkles over here at the eye. Small veins in the side of the temple. Those small shapes, small detail, the texture here of the blood on the arm and this sort of rope of blood. I'll do this a lot, like after the texture, to kind of help communicate more, you know, volume of that blood, the blood splattering across that cylinder of the arm. That stuff goes a long way towards convincing the eye that the thing they're looking at is like good or detailed, finished, high quality. I don't necessarily know if you need to have a ton of crazy detail for your art to feel finished and good, but it's a kind of a trick. It's like if you add that information, I think it could go a long way towards exciting the viewer. I love these big, gnarly, like witch finger deals. This stuff, witch finger hand. And I'll use that texture brush, stuff that I just don't want to spend a lot of time on, but it needs to feel. I need the impression of some detail real quick, and then I'll go back and hit that same texture brush. I'll make it smaller, go into texture over here, and you can adjust the scale on your texture, the big stamp or small stamp. And I'll go ahead and hit that lightly, and that gives more feeling of that blood spatter and those smallest shapes. And especially with like gore and horror, it sort of adds this, you know, I don't know, Nurgle-esque effect, I feel like. Then I'll draw some of these drips. Blood, just more little. This kind of thing. I'll go and cut in here. And I'll come in with my nib brush and do like smallest final little spines or hairs. What the? It's not working. There we go. What's up with the world these days, guys? Like every update you get is like the worst update that you didn't need, and somehow you're still forced to get that update if you want to be able to do your stuff. And I'm gonna leave that off, those spikes. Sometimes I'll do, like, if I made those marks, I don't hate them. Actually, that's kind of cool right there. But what you could do, if like you made a cluster of marks that are interesting, sometimes I'll try them in other places, like small of the back, you know, back here at the butt. That's kind of interesting. Makes it feel a little bit apish. I'll just leave it. Maybe I'll do a bit of some like connective goop right here. Again, small detail going across there with this tar strand stretching along there. That can look cool. Maybe from like this arm to this arm is a bit of some stretch of. I'll do that kind of thing, this stretchy tar stuff. I'll do it in places like here where there's so much bone that remains exposed. It's like almost too naked. I'll use it to start to suggest some like tendons and connective tissue while still keeping that creepy skeletal look. I think it looks neat. I'll do this stuff down here because these are so interconnected. They're like crossing each other, and maybe there's some kind of like mucus on them, and as they cross, you know, they sort of stick to each other and then stretch apart. Then sometimes I'll go and like the diameter of the brush, this round brush, was so like, I don't know, almost like perfect or something. And it makes it feel a bit stiff or photoshoppy, so I'll come down and just sort of introduce imperfection or irregularity to that shape. Maybe suggest some like compression. This might be a good place to stop. I've been online for a while. Appreciate you guys checking in and hanging out. It's real nice of you. Hope you guys have a wonderful Sunday. So let's call it right now. Thank you guys for your time. Let's call this one. And I'll be back on this week, and we'll work on more of these enemies for Nightmare at the Museum. This will be our caster, at least for now. You know, it needs more work, but it's a cool idea, this sort of Skeksis, Terrortorn, Terror Bird type creature. And it probably needs a weapon. There's just more work here to be done, but in general, I think that bird motif is cool. Bird and horse. Work on another next time. You guys take care. Enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye.